it's a tough battlefield. You win friends, you lose friends, you become disconnected from people. But we do think that we know who's good-hearted and who's not good-hearted. We think we can kind of tell that probably as you can. And one of the things we were told, and this makes our life more difficult, but this is one of the things that also keeps us alive. We were told by a very friendly insider source, he said, listen, he said, don't try and prove anything. Never try and prove anything. And actually, at that time, it was just interesting because we weren't trying to prove anything anyway. We don't have any documents. We don't have an alien in the cupboard that we can wheel out in front of the camera saying, here, look at this. We don't have anything like that. We don't have, convincing photographs. We don't have affidavits from anybody. We don't have anything. All we have is stories. And we're trying to paint a picture. We're trying to put this mosaic together so people can see for themselves, so people can use this to correlate their own experience. But there's a very subtle point here, because some people say, you can't prove anything you are saying. You're coming up with all this stuff, and there's not one document, not one photograph, not one affidavit, nothing. You can't prove a thing. And besides the fact that we don't have that stuff, we're not withholding it or anything, but this is the fuse in the circuit that enables us to continue to work. And actually, it was Dr. Hal Puthoff, the very famous physicist, the guy who ran the remote viewer program at SRI. I regard him as a friend. I met him for a couple of days. He's a wonderful man. And he was the first person who said, it's very important to maintain, it's important for the authorities to maintain plausible deniability. He said, they want this information to come out, but it's got a built-in shock absorber in the system. That they want all these stories about ETs, and these stories about abductions, and these stories about military hardware, and these stories about... They want this stuff to be slowly percolating into the popular culture, but without any proof at all. Because this means that the people whose reality would be threatened seriously if there was a photograph of an alien or a conclusive document with Kennedy's signature saying, I was going to do this, signed, date, the day before he was killed or something, then you get people reacting to this in shock, jumping out of windows, civil unrest, effect on the economy, blah, 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 destabilizing governments, because suddenly you got this stuff in people's face and and you get, and the religious question, for God's sake, as it were. So the plausible deniability is in there all the time, because no one is being forced to take anything on board if they can't handle it. If they can't handle it, they just say, this person's crazy. Bill Ryan's crazy, Mel's crazy, Alex Jones is crazy, David Icke's crazy. That's their shock absorber, and then they go and live their lives, and the world continues in a stable way. But the people who can take it on board do, and they say, you know what? I feel this is true. I don't need any truth. I don't need any proof. I'm just going to think about this now, and it fits with what I heard from this other guy. And this is why it's important and workable, and it's all working on a drip feed. We're actually not only protected by the white hats, but we're useful to the black hats, because they've got a problem. They've got a problem because they're sitting on all this stuff. It's got to come out somehow. They've had a program in place for decades now where they're seeding this information to the popular culture as early as 1952 or whenever it was, when they made the first version of The Day the Earth Stood Still. They were trying to tell the world then something, about what's really going on. Ever since then, we've had, it's like any kid, any teenager who watches movies, you ask them if ETs are real, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Of course they're real. It's obvious. They've been watching cartoons about it ever since they were 4 years old. For them, it's part of their reality. They think people who think that it can't be real are crazy. You see, so it's working. And this is in the popular culture. They've been part of, they've been seeding all this stuff in there. We're very, very useful to them. We're useful to them because we're helping this process. We were never part of the plan, But that doesn't mean to say that they didn't, that they're not opportunistically pleased that we suddenly appeared on the scene. We haven't been manipulated into doing this. But it's part of how this all goes together. If this does solve their problem, so that the world is able to take upon disclosure, and we're somehow part of their strategy because somebody really does want to make an announcement that tells the truth, I'm actually pleased to be part of that. We're not knowingly being used, but if it's the truth, it's the truth, and so let's do that. And in the meantime, of course, they're reading our emails, they're probably listening to this conversation, they're going to watch this video, they're going to analyse what I know, they're going to figure out what it is that I'm saying, what it is that I'm not saying. Someone's going to do an assessment to see whether I'm being responsible. They're going to, they're continuing to update my profile, they're going to find out whether I'm reliable, they're going to see what else they're going to throw at me that I might, or us, when I say me, I'm only talking about me because Kerry's not here. They do this with us all the time. And to the degree that we're useful to them, we're going to be allowed to continue. I think we're doing them a big favour. They're interested to know who we're talking to. They read all our emails. They figure out who's waking up. But you can't avoid that. You can't avoid that. The only way to avoid that completely is to go into a hole, stop communicating, and go and do something else all your life. And that's not the plan either. You see, we have to work with them. So it's a kind of symbiosis. You see. It's a symbiosis. It's a sort of ecosystem where all of these, where you get the sharks and the mice and the elephants and the lions and the tigers and the snakes, they all live together in this ecosystem. And that's kind of what's happening on planet Earth at the moment. And this is a real metaphor, but that ecosystem is kind of evolving in a particular direction. And in the meantime, everything's kind of finding its own level, the energy is flowing, the information is flowing, and you get this whole thing played out on this huge cosmic tapestry, which has got something to do with consciousness increasing. The consciousness needs to have information so that it's got something to process, so people can deconfuse themselves. The kids who are coming into this world think, what the hell's going on? Now I know why I'm here. Now I know what the game is. Now I know where these chess pieces are. Now I know what to trust and what not to trust. And everyone's figuring this out, and that's all part of the learning, because that's all part of their responsibility, individual responsibility, to utilize this training course and to learn what they can learn. And all of this is against the backdrop of a whole bunch of nasty people who may not have lost their planet an awful long time ago, who are trying to control us because they're frightened of the power that we have as infinite consciousness. And as they say, it's that guy who said this at the beginning of the third Bourne movie, you couldn't make this stuff up. It's wonderful. Yeah. It's like, and David Icke says, I wouldn't be anywhere else doing anything else at any other time. It's a fantastic time to be alive, and it's just the place to be. This is where the action is. We're on the cutting edge, and for anyone watching this who's wondering whether this is the right place to be, I defy you to think of anything else, anywhere else, that wasn't quite so much fun, as right now, and the opportunity is to really make a difference.
Lovely. All right, on that note, Bill, thank you very much for your time, and it was absolutely a greatest pleasure to speak to you and get to pick your brains and all the wonderful information you have. And I really hope we can sit down and have another chat sometime soon, because I'm sure that you've got a lot more to tell. So thanks for your time.
It's been a very great pleasure.
Great, thank you.